Have you ever really stopped to think about this? Even though we all wish for peace in our hearts, why does war continue to exist throughout human history?
It's so true. No one willingly desires conflict, but if you turn on the news, conflicts are erupting somewhere in the world almost every single day. It honestly makes you feel like there's a fatal flaw in the system of humanity itself.
Exactly. No matter how much our technology evolves, even to the point where we can go into space, the fundamental issue of why we can't stop killing each other remains completely unaddressed. So today, in our deep dive, we're taking this extraordinarily vast and significant question head-on.
It's such a wonderful theme. And our sources today aren't just your standard history textbooks, right?
Not at all. They integrate insights from giants in fields like history, evolutionary psychology, and international politics to serve as a sort of ultimate blueprint for peace.
The bundle of sources this time is incredibly exciting. We're looking at Will Durant's historical philosophy, Yuval Noah Harari's analysis of Sapiens, and Steven Pinker's statistical analysis on violence.
Plus, John G. Stoesinger's analysis of leadership in international politics, and Clausewitz's theories on war. These insights from entirely different fields combine like a giant puzzle. Let's unravel it. Our mission today is to completely transcend narrow frameworks like specific countries or ideologies.
Right, to transcend them by analyzing things from a cosmic perspective, seeing the Earth from the outside. Ultimately, we hope you listening can connect this to a concrete mindset, something you can actually practice in your personal life starting tomorrow.
It's on a grand scale. First, let's look at the foundational history on which we stand.
Shall we start with the Durant's lessons of history? According to the sources, throughout 5,000 years of history, there are universal rules for civilizations.
What this means, simply put, is that history is the philosophy of human nature. In other words, no matter how advanced our computer networks get, cycles based on biological and economic laws, like the concentration and redistribution of wealth, or power struggles, have just been repeated by humanity over and over.
Hold on a moment. So, does that mean our fundamental human software hasn't been updated at all since the days of the Roman Empire?
Exactly right. Imagine playing a board game like Monopoly. No matter how many times you restart the game, eventually one person monopolizes the wealth, the other players go bankrupt, and the game resets. The Durants say that historical revolutions or wars are merely repetitions of this rule, an excessive concentration of wealth followed by violent redistribution.
Hearing that makes you feel a bit despondent, honestly.
It does, but that's where Yuval Noah Harari's perspective comes in. His talk about the OS of Sapiens is fascinating.
Harari's narrative theory or fiction, right? Humans can cooperate with large numbers of strangers because we have the power to believe in fictions like nations, religions, or money.
This is a crucial point. Take banknotes, for example. Physically, they're just pieces of paper. Their actual production cost is only a few yen. But because we share a common story, a fiction that they have value, we can engage in economic activities with people on the exact opposite side of the earth.
This power of sharing fictions has created massive cooperative networks that enabled things like pyramid construction or lunar landings. I mean, you couldn't possibly ask a chimpanzee to give you their banana by promising they'll go to heaven after they die.
Exactly, it's absolutely impossible. However, there's a fatal side effect to this incredible ability. The very same ability to believe in fictions becomes a boundary line. It turns others who believe in different narratives into enemies, which initiates wars.
It's wild. When you look at the Earth from space, you can't actually see any borders, yet we are willing to risk our lives to kill each other over those invisible fictional lines.
Moreover, the sources point out that the speed of our evolution plays a huge part in why we resort to such actions. It's a psychological weak point of human evolution.
Right, what's interesting here is that sapiens didn't take hundreds of years slowly ascending the ecosystem like lions or sharks. We rapidly reached the top. Yes, in just tens of thousands of years, a blink of an eye in evolutionary terms, we went from the middle range straight to the top.
So instead of being confident kings of beasts, we are always anxious about our position. The analogy of nuclear-armed sheep in the sources was chilling, but very apt.
It's like we're an exceedingly nervous, heavily armed chihuahua.
Precisely. Creatures driven by fear are far more dangerous than those with great strength and assurance. They're prone to overreacting to slight stimuli or making preemptive attacks. In essence, we Homo sapiens are frightened sheep holding the massive power to repeatedly destroy the earth.
That's our current position. But I have a question. While we might instinctively be frightened sheep, modern warfare involves massive bureaucratic organizations and complex nation systems, doesn't it? Does a leader personally press the missile button simply because they're strong? There has to be a cold, rational calculation of resources or territory, right?
Everyone would like to believe that. But here's where John G. Stoisinger's analysis becomes highly effective. After analyzing many past wars, Stoisinger concludes that the true trigger for war lies not in objective calculations of resources, but in the subjective misjudgments of leaders.
Subjective misjudgments?
Yes. More than the objective value of territory, it's the leader's personal fears, bruised honor, overconfidence in their military, and above all, the misinterpretation of the opponent's intentions that press the war switch. It's the paranoid belief that they will attack us.
So no matter how enormous and rational the state system appears, at the end of the day, the decisions are made by humans tied by fear and pride.
Exactly. And Clausewitz's theory presents a further despairing reality here.
From On War, right? Clausewitz referred to the lack of information or uncertainty in battle or politics as friction. Like when reconnaissance planes can't fly due to bad weather, or when encrypted messages are delayed.
Yes, and adding that friction to the mix results in major misunderstandings, such as mistaking a radar malfunction for an enemy missile launch. This friction severely exacerbates a leader's fears and paranoia, causing panic as they assume there must be an enemy trap.
That's precisely it. Clausewitz described war with the concept of a trinity.
The passion of the people, namely blind hatred, the army's chance and friction, and lastly, the government's reason.
As long as these three are in balance, conflicts can be controlled. But what happens when that balance is lost?
When leaders' misjudgments and battlefield friction stir up fear to such extremes that passion and enmity completely swallow reason, it escalates to an all-out war. No political goals, just annihilating the enemy. We frighten sheep, believing in fictions. Lose our reason to fear, friction, and misjudgments.
The more I hear, the more pessimistic it sounds about the future of humanity. But the purpose of this deep dive is to explore a blueprint for peace, right? Is there any glimmer of hope?
There is. Steven Pinker's data offers a statistically powerful beacon of hope. When looking at objective data over the past few thousand years, the amount of violence humanity experiences has actually dramatically reduced.
Really? That's quite unexpected. Watching the news gives the false impression that the world is getting more dangerous and brutal.
That's because we live in a 24-hour news cycle, with media quickly delivering shocking events.
True, negative news captures our attention. Human brains are wired to react strongly to negative information for survival.
However, comparing centuries-old data with present times, both homicide rates and war casualties have notably decreased. Pinker has proven that civilization systems have steadily suppressed the inner demons of revenge and domination within us.
Civilization systems? What exactly is suppressing our demons?
One major factor is economic interdependence, commerce and trade. It's far more cost-effective and profitable to import resources and export your own products than to send an army to take resources.
Makes sense. If you kill an opponent, you can no longer use them as a trade partner.
Precisely. Furthermore, increased literacy and education provide the ability to imagine others' perspectives, supported by rules like democracy and the judicial system.
These have brought out the better angels within us, like empathy and self-restraint.
So, even though biologically we remain frightened sheep, we have the capability to build systems that forcibly enable peace. And when we integrate all these wise insights, a peace equation highlights itself, which is the key focus of this exploration.
An equation? Tell me more.
Imagine a giant scale, or a tug-of-war. The force pulling us down, the denominator, comprises the fundamental fears within Sapiens and the misjudgments of leaders we discussed earlier. The numerator, pulling us upward, comprises the better angels Pinker mentioned: empathy, interdependence, and reason.
I see. If we can enlarge the numerator's force over the denominator's demons, peace can be maintained.
Exactly. But fear and misjudgment are biological instincts, so they can't be easily eliminated. Here is where a powerful multiplier comes into play to stabilize the entire system, AOI.
Owie? The source suggests this is the system of scientific objectivity. It sounds slightly cold. Does it imply a system that entirely removes human emotions? How does this prevent leaders from lying or instigating wars?
Let's look at a practical example. Say a leader claims a neighboring country is massing troops at the border, inciting fear on television to launch a preemptive strike.
Utilizing fictional propaganda, a tactic repeated throughout history.
Right. But imagine a system based on scientific objectivity, an open-source satellite data dashboard accessible to everyone globally, instantly analyzing and sharing real-time video and logistics data near the border. That system would immediately prove there are no troops, exposing the discrepancies in the leader's statement.
It eliminates the non-transparency of information, so leaders simply can't lie. Introducing a purely logical, non-emotional system as the AOI of governance that holds no fear for biological survival.
By doing so, a transparent information platform is created, greatly minimizing Clausewitz's feared friction. As friction disappears, leaders' miscalculations diminish, and the demons of the denominator are systemically invalidated.
So we supplement the bugs of our fictions with coldly objective factual data. This is a grand civilizational update of systematizing reason itself.
Overall, using this AOI of objectivity, we must fundamentally change the decision-making KPI in politics. Right now, politics move for national prestige, territorial expansion, GDP growth, or protecting certain ideologies.
But Harari astutely points out that countries don't feel pain even when they lose wars, corporations feel no pain when they go bankrupt, and Zeus doesn't cry when Zeus's temple burns. Zeus doesn't cry, that's an eye-opening statement. A nation is just a concept on a map, it doesn't have a nervous system to feel pain.
Indeed, they're all fictitious constructs. Only real living beings can genuinely suffer. The sole test for distinguishing fiction from reality is whether one can feel suffering.
Therefore, in future peaceful civilizations, using scientific objectivity, we must rigorously quantify how much pain a policy or military action causes in reality. And minimizing that pain on life should be the sole KPI for politics.
We must establish an absolute rule: we must not sacrifice lives suffering in reality for intangible fictions. This is the backbone of the blueprint for peace.
We've talked on such a grand scale, but how is this connected to everyday life? After listening to colossal system discussions, what can we individuals do starting tomorrow?
We are not powerless. In fact, it's the change in awareness at the individual level that becomes the foundation supporting this colossal system. There are 3 clear actions we can practice daily.
Please tell us.
Firstly, when watching the news or making decisions, conduct a suffering test on yourself. Ask whether your anger is for protecting a fiction, or if real life is suffering. If you realize you're getting angry for a non-existent story, you can cool down from that fervor.
I see. Secondly, objectify nationalism or the identities you believe in, and reconsider others as rational beings capable of suffering just like yourself. It's about consciously climbing Pinker's escalator of reason.
Exactly. If you realize that others are frightened sheep as well, you create room for dialogue. Lastly, daily introspection. Through meditation or quiet time, develop the habit of stepping back and observing whether your emotions are hacked by someone else's fiction. Always be aware of your brain's bugs.
Our time is almost up. To sum up, Homo sapiens have come this far because of the power to believe in fictions, but we have biological weaknesses from the fear of standing abruptly atop the ecosystem. The roadmap for eradicating conflict lies in supplementing these human weaknesses with a non-emotional system called scientific objectivity, prioritizing the realities of life.
Perfect summation. Lastly, I'd like to leave everyone who traveled with us on this deep exploration with a provocative question. As we've learned today, Homo sapiens' greatest strength is the ability to believe in fiction. So what should the next great fiction we create be?
The next great fiction. It may not be borders or currency, but a new global story. A story, intentionally believed, that eliminating all suffering on Earth is humanity's greatest interest.
What story will you choose to believe tomorrow? What we choose to believe directly shapes the reality of the future.
Thank you truly for joining us on this endlessly profound exploration. See you next time.